Hello, I'm Kara Kinsler, and you are listening to Inside IASB, a podcast series that explores leadership and education topics as they relate to school board responsibilities. The Illinois Association of School Boards, IASB for short, invites guests from Illinois public school districts to offer insight into current and best practices. This second series will take a closer look at who school board members are. There are close to 6,000 school board member volunteers, elected or appointed, to represent the interests of 2 million Illinois public school children. It is an unpaid position. With each episode in this series, you'll hear a school board member share why they serve, as they talk about their motivations and experiences as a school board member. In this episode, listen to my interview with Dr. Anisha Jogee, a school board president at Arlington Heights District 25. District 25 serves the central portion of Arlington Heights with 7 elementary schools and 2 middle schools. Dr. Jogee's background brings a global perspective to education as she grew up in Malawi. She's made a career in education, and her learning has not stopped as a school board member. In this interview, she talks about more awareness of school decisions being a positive outcome of COVID, and she describes her experience in school board service as transformative. Let's listen. First, Anisha shares a little bit about herself and her interest in interested you in school board service.
One of the reasons I wanted to, when I was thinking about how do I serve my community? I am an educator. I've been a classroom teacher. I started my career in Evanston District 65 as an elementary school teacher, then moved on to do my master's in principalship and served as a school leader, and then actually served the district that I served as school board president before my children. For my children and so forth, I was an administrator and interim assistant principal and district level, administrator as well in Arlington Heights District 25. So as an educator, when I was thinking, okay, how do I support my community? The school board was a very organic decision as to kind of sharing my expertise and experience in a system that I love so much and work and a field that I think is such an important one for communities and students. I just completed my doctorate in education, and I was so fascinated. I'm a second-term school board member and school board president. Actually, my dissertation, when it was time to pick my dissertation topic, my dissertation is on equity-focused school board leadership and how school boards can support, and especially in the supporting suburban school districts. And so I was so fascinated by this topic in practicing as a school board member that I dived even deeper, very, very deep for a very long time, and have completed my dissertation. And I look forward to kind of sharing my learning with school board members across the country. Coming to the States, I moved here when I was 21, realizing that the education system was very much a participatory system, right? And so what motivated me to serve on the school board and to continue to serve is this piece where it takes a village to have a good school system. And it's so important for parents to participate and to be part of that and to share their input. And that's all these diverse perspectives. What makes the K-12 system so rich. So I like to be at that table to be sure that I'm there to support my community and to really listen to these perspectives and so that we can continue to enhance our system.
She mentions that she grew up in Malawi.
Yeah, I grew up in Southeast Africa. I grew up in Malawi.
In your schools changed in recent years?
I went to actually the British school system when I was there. So I was in international schools when I was there. And I actually just went back to Malawi this summer after 25 years, took my children, my husband back. My kids were laughing at me. They were like, okay. So I took them to all the schools, all my childhood schools. We actually met my second grade teacher and who I've kept in touch with all these years. And for me to have that global perspective has been really important to kind of compare the school system that I came from to the school system here. And I truly think that all these perspectives, mine, the communities, families, parents, really continues to make things richer.
I asked her about her community's interest in public education and school board work. Here's what she had to say about how that has changed in recent years.
I've been in education for 25 years, right? And
I didn't know my school board that comes
members,
with being a
and I was in the
member?
system, and I was an administrator, and I was an educator, right? I didn't know my school board members. However, I think COVID changed that. And actually, when I first became a school board member in 2017, I'd go to the school board meetings and there was nobody there. Nobody attended. Hardly anybody attended the school board meetings. And it made me kind of sad that, you're doing this work and you're talking to an empty room and you're talking amongst yourselves. And education and K-12 is such an important space, right? So I was kind of sad about that. But of course, when COVID started, I think realizing it was such a difficult time for our community, super difficult for everybody involved, including school board members or parents as well, many of us. But for every single human on earth, COVID was a really difficult time. And school boards were getting a lot more attention because of the decisions that had to be made as far as remote learning and pandemic and so forth. So I wasn't happy about the pressure and the sad time. However, the increase in participation and the awareness of school boards and what they do as policymakers, I think that awareness is an important piece. So I definitely have seen a change. And I was really glad or just grateful to be able to, it was so many of us felt so helpless at that time as to there's this global pandemic, what can we do? But for school board members, myself included, I was happy to serve during that time. It was a very, very difficult time, a lot of pressure on school boards, administrators, educators, teachers, students, parents, right? It was just a really tough time for everybody, but I was glad to be there to listen, to be there as for myself and my school board, to be there as a source of support for the community and to say, hey, you're not alone, we're here.
About the learning curve that comes with being a school board member, here's what she had to say.
As far as being a second-term school board member, I'm just so grateful. Even my research shows that it takes a second term almost for a school board member to make change, right? Because I think with what that comes with is experience and understanding of the role, and having studied it even further, really understanding all the different aspects to school board leadership makes a difference in how you lead and hopefully helps us be better leaders for our community.
I asked Anisha what makes her proud to be a school board member. Here's what she had to say.
What I'm proud of
an activity your board does to connect with the community better is host coffee and conversation sessions. Can you explain these?
That's why the beauty of democracy and contested elections, I think, is so good because it pushes us to get to know our community, right? I think it's weird. Like, I have lived in Arlington Heights for 15 years now, but I wouldn't have had the courage, with when I was raising my children and so forth, just to go up to somebody and be like, hi, I'm Anisha, or getting to know your neighbors. But I think it's the golden rule of being good to your neighbors, where being a school board member really pushes you and gives you the permission to get to know people, introduce yourself, get to know the businesses, get to know all these people. Truly, like I'll say it again, it takes a village to raise children and to get to know this village, raising the 5,500 students in Arlington Heights, and the getting to know the teachers who work so hard to make all this happen. And truly, we appreciate our educators so much, and our appreciation for our educators has even increased. So I think I'm really proud of the fact that I really, really appreciate knowing my community.
One of the activities her board does to connect with the community is to host a coffee and conversation session. Here's how she explains that.
This engagement piece of getting to know our community, and also community members really saying, hey,
to your leadership
the only time we can interact is at the school board meeting. And at the school board meeting, it's not a place for like fluid conversation, right? But it is this two-way communication piece is so important. And so thinking of creative ways in respect of OMA, the Open Meetings Act. So only 2 board members are at a community coffee. So we're not violating the Open Meetings Act. And it's just a fluid conversation that we can be accessible to our community members.
Continuous learning is important to Anisha as a leader and in her career. Here's what she shared about governance practices she has learned.
When I began to really understand what my role is and really to study it, and this piece of growth and board development is very important, right? And so school board members, it's not like school board members I think the beauty of it is that there's diverse leaders as far as diversity of thought who come in and sit at a table, right? But none of us went to school to become a school board member. But it is such an important and critical role. So for school board members to continue to learn, myself to continue to learn, has been a really important aspect for me, to the point that my doctoral work and my dissertation was in that topic, right? So I really appreciate the Illinois Association of School Boards, and I, as far as laying out the basics of governance, and there's always a graphic, and I have talked about this graphic before, is a graphic kind of explaining what guardrails and what is the lane that school board members should stay in to be most helpful to the superintendent and to the administrators and the schools, because there's a direct correlation between effective school board leadership and student outcomes, right? And so I love the graphic by IASB, as kind of there's these 6 bubbles, and I kind of take these 6 bubbles and this graphic with me to school board meetings, and I always have it. It's pinned up on my office wall at home as well. Is this, number one, that school board members clarify the district purpose, right? We are the policymakers. We set the direction, the mission, the vision, the strategic plan. Super important that we understand how to do this. And the second thing is that this piece, we talked about the coffees, right? Connecting with the community, really important. Knowing who our community is, knowing what their needs are, understanding that, really important. The third one is that we employ the superintendent. And that is a fundamental responsibility of school boards, to give the superintendent clear directions and have really open conversations with a lot of trust between school board members and the superintendent. The superintendency is an extremely challenging role. As school board president, I take a lot of responsibility. It's an important one to kind of speak with one voice to the superintendent, giving the superintendent clear expectations. And the fourth part is to delegate authority, because when we're sitting at that table, we're kind of the oversight team. And so we're not the educators, we're not the administrators. So really, with that perspective, delegating authorities to our very expert and super qualified administrators and teachers and superintendent to then execute the work, the policy, the strategic plan, but always that fifth role of monitoring performance, always having that oversight in mind is really important, to give that perspective from the community being really important. And I've talked about this already. The sixth piece that is really important for school board members, for me, is taking responsibility for ourselves as a school board and individually. So always learning, going to conferences, going to sessions, reviewing ourselves as a board so that we continue to be strong leaders.
Thinking about her experience, Anisha is encouraging for others to come forward and consider school board service.
We all bring such a unique set of perspectives. So I think one of the most important prerequisite or qualification for being a school board member is caring about your community and caring first and foremost for the students and the well-being of students and educators and schools, right? So all you have to do is care about education, and that qualifies one to run for school board, because the learning comes after. And there's so many opportunities to learn from the Illinois Association of School Boards, from other agencies across the country. So I encourage folks to run for school board and to give back to your communities.
Thank you, Dr. Anisha Jogee, for your time sharing your experiences as a school board member. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you are a school board member and would like to share your experience with listeners, or if you have a question or topic you want to be addressed in a future podcast, I'd like to hear from you. You can email communications@iasb.com, or you can visit anchor.fm/ilschoolboards to leave us a voicemail. Thanks for listening.